Mom Training Podcast with Diana Ballard.
Ladies, I have a special treat for you. This is our first man on the Mom Training Podcast. Say what? Guys, my husband is going to join us today, and I'm so excited about it because we're going to talk about love languages today, and this is something that has definitely helped our relationship, helped us understand each other better, understand ourselves better. So we're going to share kind of how we use the love languages, like literally like all the time. In a lot of conversations, communicating with each other, conflict management, everything like that. If you've never heard of love languages before, it's by a man named Gary Chapman. He has a website, 5lovelanguages.com. You can definitely check him out. And if you have not heard of love languages before, it's, physical touch, quality time, service, gifts, words of affirmation, highly powerful ways of being able to show love to your loved one or receive them yourself. So I'm super excited to talk about this with my husband and have you guys kind of, chime in to our conversation here. So James, I want you to share, I know you had a really interesting experience when you went to a conference lately where you talked to a man that had no idea about these love languages at all.
Yeah, thanks for introducing me, Diana. So I'd gone to a kind of a professional training event, and one of my, I'd found kind of like a group to share the room with so we could split the hotel bill. And one of the guys came in, and you could tell he definitely had something going on. And, a few questions, prompts about how things were going on, and he quickly kind of shared his story, which boiled down to his wife had taken his kids and had left, leaving him like a note or something like that of basically, I think they'd been married 7 years and had either 3 or 4 children. He was a chicken farmer, and it was just heartbreaking story because when we were talking with him, he said, well, she'd been complaining for years that, they hadn't been connecting, that she hadn't been feeling loved from him. And as soon as the conversation led to that, I said, well, have you been speaking your love languages? And he'd never heard them before in his life. So I briefly explained, so like, here's the website, and I sent him to the 5lovelanguages.com because they have a quiz there. He took it really quick, and then he did it for his wife, and you could just see this like, aha, fireworks going off, and he almost broke down into tears because he said, I realized I have never spoken her love language to her our entire marriage. I have only done mine. And that's where, because I have some experience with, I got my bachelor's in counseling and have worked at a outpatient psych clinic. I had to explain to him, like, when people are like that, when you speak the wrong love language, it's like 2 ships passing in the night. Even though one's talking and trying to connect, nothing's happening, nothing's going on there. So, so this is just why it's important to know each other's love languages. And Diana and I we had this conversation pretty early on about what our love languages is, and we took the quiz so we could know each other's.
And how do you feel that's helped us?
Yeah. Well, first off, I feel one of the biggest things that it's helped us with is just to know how to speak to each other. As we went with this story with this young father that I met at this event, he had been showing he loved her for their entire marriage for like 7 years, how he wanted to be loved, and it did not enter in. Yeah, she did not receive it. She said he said, yeah, she's always saying like, I don't really care about her, even though I'm doing all these things for her. I think his love language was gifts and, I think it was like gifts and words of affirmation, and where hers was like quality time and touch. Or maybe his was touch. I can't remember exactly, but so he was doing, I think his was touch and gifts, and hers was words of affirmation and quality time. And that was the big problem because as a chicken farmer, he was super busy, so he never gave her quality time, and he wasn't really like a build her up verbally, even though it wasn't negative. And he just realized she never felt loved because he never spoke her language.
Ouch. Yeah, and I mean, we can see how that would be really hard. one of James' main love languages is physical touch. And I mean, I love snuggling and I love, being close and holding hands or whatever, but that is not my first thought when it comes to...
Isn't physical touch like your third or fourth one down? I think it was much lower.
I mean,
on the scale
I don't need physical touch like you need physical touch. So he'll come up and I'm like doing the dishes and he's like poking me and tickling me and like kissing all over my neck or something. And I'll be like, dude, I'm trying to finish the dishes. And, he just, luckily, because we've had this conversation about love languages, he's like, honey, I'm just needing some, like...
She's phrasing this very kindly. I come up and I basically pester her until it registers either me or on her that oh, honey, I think I need some physical touch here. And literally, it's only been the last couple of years that it's registered. Oh, when I'm pestering my wife, it's because I'm wanting physical attention, and it's kind of a joke, and that's now.
But I appreciate so much that he reminds me of that because. I mean, literally, like, I'll be like, oh, thank you for reminding me. And, like, I instantly start the back scratch, Or, like,
Which is glorious. If your husband has physical touch as a love language, this is key. Just a nice, good back scratch, especially.
Right? Yeah, and, like, I mean, just it's so interesting, the differences, because, like, even, like, getting in bed, like, I get in my comfortable position, and, and then he's like an octopus, like... snuggling up against me. I'm like, oh, whoa, okay, hey, how's it going? And I have to remember the physical touch is one of his, and like that's something that brings him joy, and he feels loved. And it just doesn't cross my mind. It's definitely not one of my top, like I don't need it as the way that he needs it, right? And so me knowing that this is his love language, I can like reciprocate that. And it literally is like going out of my way, like sometimes to like make sure I'm like just touching his arm or touching his leg or, like rubbing his head, like when he's falling asleep or, just reaching over. Like it's not my natural like way of doing things, so sometimes our love languages might, giving someone else their love languages like might not be something that we're used to or, is natural for us.
Comes naturally to us, yeah. I actually had to point out to her that I think our son Micah is the same because he'll come and be pestering and like yanking and tugging on hands and whatever. I'm like, honey, I think he has physical touch as a love language too. And so, but I must say the octopus snuggling, it's proven by science. It helps release endorphins. Oxytocin if you snuggle. If you're fiercely snuggling, it releases more oxytocin. So I'm just saying.
Ridiculous, but I love you.
But one point that's also actually, as she kind of touched on, that I wanted to also follow up with, is why it's important to know your own. Because we found that is, like Diana's had to say, honey, I need some quality time. Or I need, like, my service love language is not really being hit. Like, whether I'm too busy working on other projects or something, and she reminds me, and I know that's what I need to do. And she's always very appreciative, and you can tell it really hits home. It sinks deeply into her heart. She comes alive. Her eyes sparkle. All the fun stuff of like when I do the love languages that strike her heart. I guess one way that I've always thought of love languages is that they're kind of like, there's a house, and you're trying to go into the house, or things are trying to get into the house, but there's windows and doors that can go through. And if you're doing love languages that are not theirs, it's hitting walls. It's like a straight shot in. But if you hit the love language, it's like a door straight into the heart. It really means something, and it's how you help somebody feel like you really care about. So, honey, did you want to add anything, or should we dive into these love languages?
I just have to say, like, I know that like me knowing my own love language is like really important because I'll be like, why am I so mad? Why why am I like upset that he's working on something else, or like I've been fine for days, and then all of a sudden I'm like, but I need you right now, and just being able to like have some insight into myself, being like, I haven't spent quality time with him in the last 5 days, and I've been fine for those many days, but I need to spend some quality time. So then I can able to like effectively communicate that instead of just wondering why the heck I'm like upset. I mean, it's just really helped me a lot, and realizing that him helping with the dishes, either me asking or him doing it voluntary. Listen, when he does it like voluntary, I'm like, did you do the dishes for me? Oh my gosh. Like I have like the most amazing husband in the world. Like I'm just so like overjoyed. Like I can't even believe it. And it's just like a sink full of dishes, right? But service is one of mine. So it's really something that can be so simple. It's like the back scratch, or the doing the dishes, or, spending 5 minutes a day being like, tell me about your day. And I just, I'm able to spend some quality time and be listened to, So, but yeah, let's jump into the different love languages and kind of share like some things that we've learned in there.
Yes.
So.
Sounds like a plan. All right. So first off is quality time. Okay, Diana, this is definitely yours. Tell us about this love language and what's significant about it to you.
Okay. So quality time, and I'm just going to explain how I understand it.
So obviously you can go to the website and you can look these up to kind of get more in detail descriptions of them. This is just, we're sharing our experience of the love languages and how they connect for us.
Yeah. So quality time is one-on-one time. So if, there's like group events, we have a lot of like parties at our house. We like to have dinners and people over and everything. Now that is fun, and it's spending time with people. But the things that really matter to me is when like I'm being paid attention to, like 100%. When it's like it's like, hey, I really want to like hear what you have to say, what's important to you, what you did today that you felt good about, what are you thinking, like stuff like that. And listening, like a scheduled hangout. I have a friend that we have a scheduled phone call every week that we talk. That's quality time, and we each get a time to share things, and it's an uplifting conversation. Or being like surprised with, hey, like I've taken the evening off. I would love to spend it with you. Are you available? Or, I've planned this date. We can go out and do something special. Like this is quality time. Okay. So those are a couple examples of what quality time looks like. And just, I'm going to throw in an example of what might rub a quality time person the wrong way is if someone's like constantly distracted. Say they're watching like a TV show or playing on their phone or like doing something, or like interested in something else when you're really wanting to spend time with them. That's definitely something that if you're finding there's friction at all in your marriage of like, hey, can you just stop doing that for a second and spend time with me? That could be like a good flag that you might have someone in your relationship that wants quality time. So why don't you tell them about physical touch, because that's yours.
Okay. So, and I've noticed this, and I've heard this from various points, and I think our situation's common of where one love language is higher on the scale than another. And for me, physical touch is either 1 or 2. I can't remember which. But it's definitely higher than Diana's. And so for me, I've noticed that in some relationships, it's not always equal. I can only imagine one relationship where 2 people have physical touch as their top priority. Must be very touchy-feely, or I don't know.
They make lots of babies.
Or something, because there must be a lot of touch. But I've heard from other people where it's like, no, my husband's low on the scale for physical touch. My wife is high, type of thing. But for me, it's kind of like, I guess you could say like the more the better, but only when I want it. Which is weird. It just comes in spurts. For me,
so me like pinching your butt, that doesn't do anything for you?
No.
Like when you're like doing
Exactly.
the dishes or
Yes.
focusing on something? Really?
Yeah. Yes. So for me, it's usually a gentle touch, like a back scratch. One thing I think I've realized, say we're like sleeping in bed over, and she like reaches over a toe and like touches me with it, like, oh, my little heart goes pitter patter. It's like, yay.
Oh my gosh.
It's I think what stands out to me is when I know that she has gone out of the way to touch, to just, a pat on the back, a back scratch, a thoughtful arm rub, whatever it is. To me, that's what I find is the most meaningful for me with physical touch. And obviously power snuggles at night. We just lots of snuggles, and the more contact, the better, and then all is well.
Yep. And that's why we have 4 children, ladies and gentlemen. That's why I'm pregnant with number 4. I'm just kidding. Okay, so service. This is definitely one of mine.
Yeah, this is definitely one of yours.
Like willing assistance, case surprise help. Like I said, when he is like easing my responsibilities, like by surprising me with it, and I've hit gold. I'm telling you, with my husband, like he'll be sweeping the floor or, helping like put things away, like even without me asking him, or, we have worked out like, some evenings he'll watch the kids and he'll also be in charge of the kitchen that night, and like how much load that takes off of me just to help me with like something that, would probably take half an hour or like an hour, like with the kids involved, it might take me a longer time, right? In between helping people. But to just have that little bit of help, man, that takes such a load off of me. That makes me feel so loved and that like encouraged. Like it almost reminds me of like words of affirmation type thing of like, I can do this. Like, wow, like I have a little bit of help. Like it kind of just takes the load off. Like I'm capable of being able to do this, and the help really helps me, So the service is bringing someone a treat. I guess that could be gifts too. But like bringing someone dinner. Like I love bringing people dinner because that's one of, serving people. So I bring people dinner all the time, even when they don't need it. Like I love giving little old ladies dinner. I'm just going to say that. I wish I knew more little old men, but I just don't. I just know tons of little old ladies because their husbands have died, which is so sad. But, like, so that is a way you could also recognize someone that has like the love language of service is someone is constantly wanting to serve other people, to do other things.
Yeah. And that's actually one point I wanted to make, and we might as well make it right now, is if you have somebody in your relationship who seems to be making a lot of effort to connect with you, but it just doesn't seem to be connecting, it's probably because they're speaking to you in their love language, not yours. Whether it's a husband, a spouse of any kind, or like a family member or a parent, just realize they're probably speaking to you in theirs. Like I know people who have gift giving is their love language, and boy, do they give lots of gifts. And I realized, I need to make efforts to speak back to them in their love language in order for this to be kind of a reciprocal, healthy relationship. Which actually leads us, before we forget, there's 2 more love languages and we don't want to keep this too long. So let's do words of affirmation and then we'll touch on gifts last. Okay. So for me, words of affirmation it's when somebody gives a heartfelt, sincere, thank you, or a sincere compliment. People will compliment and it can feel like rote, but when it's like sincere and heartfelt, like you can feel it. And that's really impactful for me. I mean, words of affirmation, I think kind of are, if you are very impacted by words of affirmation, or if you're very impacted by affirmations in general, then words of affirmation are probably in your love language. And if you're rate highly, you probably need some more verbal encouragement. And so yeah, talk with family members about that and say, hey, I might need some more verbal affirmations or verbal words of affirmation to
encouragement.
Yeah.
Well, and I know for me with words of affirmation, I'd probably say that's my third, is words of affirmation. Is like when I'm having a hard time, or like I'm needing to verbally process some frustration, the biggest thing that helps me in that moment, one, is to listen to me, right? If I just need to kind of vent a little bit, like get out some frustration and try to figure out a solution. But if someone's like, you are completely capable of doing this, like I don't know why you're tripping, like you can totally do this, you've conquered things far harder than this, and you know that. So why don't you like stop with this discouragement stuff and just step up and like do what you've done before, which is conquer things, right? Now those type, when you're struggling or you're frustrated, to have someone remind you of your wins or remind you of like, hey, you can totally do this, and like mean it, and maybe they've known you for years, man, that's some powerful stuff. So if you have someone in your home, either whether it be you or your spouse, a kid that's, really feeds off of positive things that you say, then you could have someone in your home that's words of affirmation. And we're talking about these love languages not just for your spouse or yourself, but your kids as well. You know, I realize with my daughter, like, quality time and service.
Yeah, she blossoms underneath them.
I mean, can we go on a mommy date? Can we go on a daddy date? Is it time yet? Can we spend special time together? Can we get dressed up and go and have fun? And it literally could be like driving around the block. Oh my gosh, this is a mommy date. You're taking me to dance. You know, yeah. Like, it's really important to know these love languages for your family because, you know, again, if you're not speaking them or you're speaking the wrong one, they might not feel loved.
Yeah, and I've noticed you'll know, at least for me, I've noticed my kids, when I hit their love language, there's a special response that comes out of them. Like, they light up a lot more than normal. They, like, really respond to it. They start talking back. Like, Olivia's really good at that. When we've fed her with affirmations, she'll do the same back. She'll be like, Mommy, you're the best. Or, Daddy, you're just the best. And it's really sweet and tender. So I really think this is as much as important for kids as for spouses. So,
all right, let's touch on gifts.
Yeah. So this isn't really high for me, and I don't think it's very high for you. But I do know I have a tiny bit of surprises. It doesn't really have to be that big of a surprise, but
food.
Yeah, food mostly.
I literally, hold on. When I go to like an event or something, and I'm like coming home, I literally know that if I just wrap something in a napkin from my from like the dinner they made for us, or there was like appetizers or anything, literally if I bring him home just even like a little surprise from
she
food,
was thinking of me, and it makes me warm and fuzzy inside. Ladies, there are not many men who don't get excited by a surprise of food. Especially something really tasty. I mean, literally like 2 bites of a sandwich. It's true.
I mean, literally like, I saved you, you know, two bites, which 2 bites of a woman sandwich, like 2 woman bites is 1 man bite. So, I mean, he scarfs that thing in one, but he had a nice bite of something tasty.
Yes,
you know?
Yes, it was.
So, yeah, like someone that likes surprises is definitely some, you know, love language of gifts.
Yeah.
Someone that's always giving gifts. Someone that's like buying you stuff or sending you stuff in the mail, that's definitely someone who has a love language of gifts.
Yeah, and I'm remembering now, I do have one friend, and I know for a fact gifts is his love language. And while he is more of an artistic soul, not more of artistic, he is definitely an artistic soul. And he loves gifts of meaning and of like that are very sentimental or just have meaning. So like, I mean, I remember his apartment was filled with just like, you know, like 100-year-old, like tiny Bible that was illegible, that was somebody's great grandparent, and to them was trash, but it was like just a really old Bible, and they just felt like he would like it and appreciate it, and sure enough, he did. Or like an old, even though he's not Catholic, he had like an old like Catholic little fold out like shrine thing. I can't remember what, but he just loved the history, and he loved that somebody gave and shared this something that was important to them, that they loved him enough to share it with him. And that's, I think, is kind of like the key, at least that I've seen of gifts of service, or sorry, the gift giving love language, is that it was meaningful to you, and that you show them or you explain to them why it was meaningful, and that you're wanting them to have it now too, you know. And so I think that's for those who are gift givers and love to receive gifts. I think that's definitely part of that whole equation of gift giving.
You know, and I have to say though that if your love language is not gift giving or service or quality time or affirmations or anything like that, we still need to be sensitive to if people are showing their love language to us. You know, like say someone's giving lots of gifts, or maybe yours is an affirmation or touch, you know, like octopus hugging you is not like the biggest, you know, bucket filling thing. Like, it's not like it's bad, but it's not exactly what the person needs. To be sensitive to that and like communicate, you know, if you're not getting your love language from them, like you just need to communicate with them so that they can realize, hey, I'm needing a little bit of this too. Like, I'm totally fine giving you you know, like receiving and giving this love language, but hey, I need this too, but being sensitive to people that might love a little different than you.
Yeah, and I also think it's important to remember that just if you have the capacity to appreciate somebody else speaking to you in their love language, even though it might not be yours, if you have that capacity, use it, leverage that, because even though they might not be speaking to you, you can still appreciate that they're making an effort, and that they're really trying to do something for you, like they're trying to speak to you in their love language. So,
and that's why it's so important to be like intuitive and like have, you know, a little bit of insight into these love languages so that you can be able to actually be like, oh, okay, this is what they're doing.
Oh my gosh, my husband's been bugging me. Stop touching me. Oh, this is his love language. He's trying to express fondness for me, or express he loves me in a physical
or
way.
Need, you know, just, yeah. So it's, I think that the love languages are almost crucial
They are.
In relationships in general with everybody around us.
Yeah, there's definitely things. So overall, I would just encourage you, I always like to give challenges if I'm given a lesson or something along those lines. Take the quiz with you and your spouse, or just go to the website and look it up again. It's 5lovelanguages.com, and see if you're missing somebody's love language. See if your ship's passing in the night and that you need to try to speak each other's love languages better. I can promise you, from that story, I remember it was lightning struck, and he got it. He realized why his marriage had been failing, because he'd never spoken his wife's love language in 7 years. And so I encourage you, don't let that happen to you or your family, because it's definitely helped us, and I'm sure it will help you.
Yeah, totally. You know, James, this has been really fun. And so this was actually his idea, you guys. He's like, hey, well, why don't I do an episode with you? And I'm like, that would be awesome. So James is great. I'm so excited that he's joined us. We'll have to have you on again.
Sounds good.
So, ladies, go to the 5lovelanguages.com. Take the test for you, maybe even your kids, your husband, and
have him take it for himself.
Definitely. But figure out what those love languages are in your home, and I guarantee it'll create a lot more harmony in your environment. So thanks for tuning in today, and we'll see you next Tuesday on the Mom Training Podcast. And if you've liked having James on here, give me some feedback, and maybe we'll have him on a little more often. So see you next week. Bye.